in the reel, that's called the helix. All right? When you're mowing, as your reel mows, grass is going to be shifting over to one side. So one half of this reel is going to be seeing more wear than what the other half is going to be seeing. Okay? Can you guys hear me without this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Puerto Rican, so I talk loud. All Latinos talk loud. So when you're backlapping, right, you're doing the same thing. You notice when you're backlapping, you got a part of lapping compound always on one side of the reel. That's because that lapping compound is shifting down the reel. So if you're backlapping for a long period of time, think about what that's doing to your reel. You know what I'm saying? Backlapping practice, and I'm gonna be honest, the last time I backlapped a reel was probably 20 years ago. I just got, and you know, if the shoe fits, wear it, I guess. But guys take backlapping to replace this, and that should not be the case. If you're backlapping for more than 2 minutes per reel, maybe it's time to just grind the reel. Okay? Backlapping is not sharpening your reel. Backlapping is maintaining the sharpness that you already have on the reel. Does that make sense? So backlapping should be used as a real quick PM to prolong the sharpness that you already have. Okay? I don't backlap. To me, I just pull the bed knife off. If anything, right, my PM is pulling the bed knife off and touching it up on the grinder. To me, I found that to be just quicker, accurate. People ask me, how often do you grind, Hector? And people get shocked when I tell them how often I grind. A greens mower, right? I've gone 12 weeks without grinding a greens mower's reel. And that's like top dressing every week. Why? Because I'm always maintaining the reel. And 8 weeks is more realistic. I go past, I'm like, I get freaked. I'm like, wait, I just gotta throw it on the grinder. You know what I'm saying? But the idea is, we don't wanna wait until, oh man, we need to grind, right? You want to grind before you even get to that point. Okay, we want the performance to stay up, quality of cut. You're always checking your reels. How many of you guys check your greens mowers reels every day? Right? Good, we should be. Checking paper, right, quality of cut, always maintaining that. Okay? I know guys that are freaking mowing greens every week. They're grinding their reels. Every week, I'm like, man, that's a lot. Okay? I think people come to my shop, it's like, man, I never see those grinders running. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't need to. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes what I see is guys, they get a grinding schedule, okay? And we ground this week, we're not gonna grind again until this week. But what happens if you need it in the middle of that period? A lot of guys won't grind because, it's not due yet. And that shouldn't be, you shouldn't have a grinding schedule. What it should be, we grind before they kind of almost need it. And whenever that falls in your period, okay? So if you're grinding or backlapping for a long time like that, you're coning your reel out, okay? And what happens when you cone your reel, one diameter is big while the other is small. Now, what do you do when you have to adjust your reel to bed knife? Now you got to bring one side up higher to touch your reel than this side. So now we're twisting our bed knives. And what happens when we twist our bed knife? Right after we make that adjustment, what's the next thing that we do? Height of cut, right? So now we're twisting the frame of the cutting unit, okay, to make that match. If you're gonna set your height of cut at, let's just say 200 here, you gotta set it 200 here, but if this side is smaller, guess what? that roller now is gonna sit like this, okay? You take that times a triplex times a fiveplex. Now, and John Deere is notorious for the aftercut appearance if these things are not paralleled correctly, okay? They're notorious, but they're also one of the easiest ones to get completely parallel and trued up, okay? Personally, I like the John Deere cutting units because I can do all that. Because of all those little, you got your eccentric bolts here, okay, on the front that you're able to manipulate that front roller and get this cutting unit nice and parallel again. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and remove this bed bar. Guys, in your past careers been a machine shop? Any machining? Okay, you? Oh, good. We got a handful of guys, so you guys are really going to understand this. Good on you guys. Now we have a vise for our bed knives or bed bar. All right. In machining world, when you put a vise in a mill, machinist, right? When you put a vise in a mill, what do you do to the surfaces? Right? Make sure there's no nicks, because if you're measuring thousandths of an inch, and so you guys are like ridiculous on another completely different scale than that. But all those little nicks and bugs and all that stuff matters. What are we doing when we're putting a bed knife onto a bed bar? Basically the same thing, aren't we? We're putting two precise metals together. In the machinist world, they stone the surfaces, right? Like on a mill, the tabletop, they have a stone. They spray it with WD-40, and they run this across there. And what it's doing, it's any high spots or any nicks, it smooths it right out. And they'll do the same thing to the bottom of whatever they're putting on there, okay? If we are doing the same exact thing, putting two precision parts together, are we stoning that surface, right? Is your bed bar getting stoned? Not you. Bed bar. I don't want to know if you're getting stoned. It's not even legal. Yeah. That doesn't matter, Hector. What you born? Yeah. I crack at home, Michigan. It's my neighbor across the street. It's a grove. Like you can see it growing over the fence. Down the road, we have like 8 farms. We have like 3 stores, and I live in a country with 2,500 population. But anyways, so it's just.
Yeah, right.
So a while back, I did a video on bed bars and bed knives. On my SIP, thank you. By the way, this is a screw tool, okay? Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to be a salesman. I'm just sharing tools that I use that really work and helps. This is from JRM. You guys familiar with JRM? This is their screw tool. Dude, Like seriously, it freaking works every freaking time. They designed it to work with their screws, but I've used it on, now they have a Toro version, they have a Jacobson version, and they have a John Deere version. But I'm telling you guys, completely worth it. I've had this bit here for probably 6 years now, and it freaking, I mean, it just works. You know, the way they designed it, it fits the screw. So, just a little. The last thing you want to do to your bed bar, right? How do you guys clean your bed bars? Wire wheel? Okay. And recall? Okay.
I use a file.
Use a file?
Yes, to keep it straight.
All right.
But I don't drill into it. I don't dig into it. I just want to surface it.
Okay.
Just enough to get that rust off, whatever, if it has rust.
Okay. That's a good tip. Anybody else have a different way of doing it? Anybody use like a grinder? Flat disc?
Flat disc, yeah.
Flat disc? You got sparks flying everywhere?
Nah, not too much.
Not too much?
Don't go too far into it, man.
Okay. Okay. So I use, you know those, the nylock? They're like plastic bristles, but they're meant for aluminum. It's like there's metal wires embedded into the plastic. That's what I use because it's meant for metal, for aluminum, but it's like the Dow deodorant, strong enough for man but made for a woman. Yeah, oh, secret, that's right. So that nylock says strong enough for a woman but made for, you know, and it doesn't dig in. If you're seeing sparks, you're taking away metal. Okay, and this is supposed to be a nice, true, flat surface. Because here's what happens. Once you install your bed bar or your bed knife onto your bed bar, this bed knife is going to take the shape of that bed bar surface, okay? How many of you guys, do we grind a brand new bed knife? Yes, yeah, why? To true it up to the bed bar, right? So if we're putting a bed knife onto a bed bar that's like this, and if the things that we're doing is not like, I like the idea with the file, right? You're keeping it straight and smooth.
I don't ever grind my bed knife. I mean, after I install it, because I never have to.
Oh, interesting. Why don't you ever have to?
Because I keep my reel straight and I background.
You keep the bed bar nice and straight, right?
Clean.
Yeah.
It just needs to be cleaned all
You
the
do
time.
the flat deal. Okay. That's awesome. On my SIP, the way the bed knife mounts to the SIP, it uses the pivot bolts. Okay? So I'll put my bolt, I have bolts specifically for Jacobson, John Deere's, and Toro. I know those bolts are straight. I put them on a V-block, I've measured it. They're like 0, maybe 1/1000th of an inch off, but they're 0. I keep those bolts, and those bolts is what I use to reinstall on a bed bar so that I can put it on my grinder. Because on my grinder, from the grinding head to that point, to this point, guys, less than 1/1000th of an inch of true parallel. So I know it is freaking straight. The top, same thing. 0.00000. It zeroes out on both sides. So I know my grinding head is straight. I can take and install this bed bar, right? And I can take a dial gauge and install a dial gauge on the cutting head. And I can measure how far this surface is from the pivot bolts. I had, when I did this video, I had a brand new, never been put on a mower, brand new bed bar. I'm not gonna say what it was. It was red. But I had a brand new bed bar, right? From here to here, 30/1000ths of an inch off. 30. Brand new freaking bar. Now, what happens, right? When I go to install a bed knife and I go to, what am I gonna do?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna freaking take 30 thousandths of an inch off this bed knife, off the rip, before it even freaking sees grass. Okay, I'm already taking that much off. If my surface is not straight and it's wavy, when you grind your bed bar, dude, these things ain't freaking cheap, right? Benchmarks, they're over $100 a knife. I mean, it's nuts. So already, before the freaking knife even gets put on the reel, you're having to take off 15, 20 thousandths of an inch. I mean, that could be a couple of grinds, you know what I'm saying? 2, 3 grinds that you're already taking off just to get it freaking parallel to this. I would encourage you, at least with your greens mowers now, get them resurfaced. You know what I'm saying? Take it to a machine shop, or if you know somebody that has SIP, right? Get them resurfaced. Actually, let me show you a picture. This golf course brought their they brought their reels in. They were explaining to me the quality of cut they were getting. I was able to show them what the deal was, and he's like, "Can you resurface my bed bars for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, for an extra cost. Yeah, I'll do that for you, for sure, all day long." He's like, "Let's get it done. I want it done right." Look where it's grinding. See that? You see the edges? I painted the surface blue, but look where it's grinding first. Okay? Completely missing the whole middle of that bed knife. And it's hitting the edges. So already this bed knife, right? So already, this bed bar, as soon as I put that knife on, it's doing that. Okay, it's a frown. And I would say let's turn that frown upside down, but we don't want to smile either, right? We want to get it flat. So I resurfaced that bar. We got that bar within 2 thousandths of an inch from end to end of true and straight. I'll put a bed knife on that, do one pass, clean. I could probably even not have ground it, right? But I just want to be for sure. But you know, now how much life have we saved just by doing that, right? I charge $100 a bed bar to resurface because it takes a minute. It takes a good hour, depending on how bad it is. But already, on his first bed knife, he already saved that. You know what I'm saying? Because he's getting that much more life. And not just that, okay? Life on your bed knife. The bed knife has 2 angles, right? We got the front face angle and then we got the top face angle, right? I get a lot of calls, "Hector, what angles do you use?" And I'm like, okay. My wife, she's white, gringa. When I first met her, bro, she would cook. And I'm like, "Honey, do we have any, I don't know, salt? Something?" She's like, "What? What's wrong?" I go, I'm like, "Babe, I'm Latino, man. I need some freaking flavor in this stuff." And she's like, "But I follow the directions." I'm like, "Yeah, directions." She followed the directions. But those directions, I said, "Baby, those directions are just to get started. You know what I mean? Add your own salt and cayenne pepper, I don't know, something, you know?" But it's the same thing with these manufacturers make these knives, right? This knife could be going to Guam. This knife could be going to Paris. I mean, how many freaking greens on your golf courses are different from one another, right? Now imagine from golf course to golf course to golf course, from region to... There's no way in Sam's Hill that my angles are going to be work for your golf course, for his golf course, right? So those angles are just to get started. Hey, try this. Don't be afraid to move those angles. If you're going out there and you're starting to see something, dude, I was working at a golf course where even in one season I had to change my angles. From the early season into the late season, I had to change my angles. In one season, I had to do that. I had to change rollers, right? In the heat of the freaking sun, you guys probably get really hot here, right? The wily rollers seem to be aggressive. Then you have to go to solids, right? Because grass is freaking getting thinned down. So there's some things that comes, right? That comes with experience. That comes with you, time at that golf course. It's not something that somebody can tell you. I mean, yeah, well, they say, hey, try this and try that. But these are things that you're gonna have to figure out. But just know, those are just numbers, right? And really, to be honest with you, if you set your machine at 5-degree top base, do you think you're really grinding that at 5-degree top base? You're not, right? The grinding stone is wore out, right? It used to be like this, now it has a little taper to it. Those are just numbers. That's it. Those are just reference numbers for your golf course, for your operation, for your mower. They're your numbers, okay? Those numbers that you get, recommendations, those are just recommendations. Those are just to help you get started. Now, yeah, there's a sweet spot there, right? You don't want to go above 6 or 7 degrees or more than 15 or 16, 18, right? You don't want to go more than that. But you're going to find that, and that's going to come with experience, not being afraid to try something. Now, when you grow the cojones to try something, do not do it on the green. Go to the nursery. You know what I'm saying? Just saying. Don't do it at a nursery, but eventually you're going to get to know your equipment and how these things react to your turf. And you're going to be like, hey, let's try this a little bit more, right? Let's add a little bit more relief to that. Okay, you got to have relief. Your reel has to have relief, right? If we're spin grinding only, okay, let's just say this is a reel blade, right? If we're spin grinding only, okay, how much, look at all that material that's having to come across that bed knife. What is that going to do? That reel has to spin. These reels are designed to spin at a certain RPM to, frequency of clip, right? To maintain your frequency of clip. In other words, how fast you're going versus how fast the reel is going. So if you're mowing at 3 miles an hour, right, and your reel is turning at 3 miles an hour, are you mowing anything? You're just walking the reel across the turf, right? So that RP, either you got to slow down or spin the reel up. Now, those are exaggerating numbers. I'm just trying to say, when we spin grind, and guys, this is not what I think. This has been proven. Scientifically, it's been proven over and over and over and over that when we spin grind only, it increases drag across the bed knife. It increases power consumption on your equipment. And you know what? And it's even more important if you're running electric motors to run these things. Okay, so if you're running electric equipment, electric motors, man, relief becomes even more so important to you, okay? But now we have all that material coming across. You're gonna have, they tell you, if this is your practice, that you gotta have no contact, right? Spin grind, hard impact grind, and by the way, no contact. Now, like the Bible says, not trying to get religious, but what does the Bible say about that? Right? Even the Bible talks about grinding. As iron sharpens iron, right? So does one man sharpens another. But as iron sharpens iron, You gotta have that contact, you guys. And that's one thing I've noticed when I did the spin grinding method only, no contact. Yeah, you have to grind more frequently because you're rounding off your edges faster. But when you have that slight contact, right, as iron sharpens iron, that reel maintains itself. Now to run contact, you gotta have relief, right? You gotta knock that out. Because here's what starts happening, and we're talking about in a microscopic level, right? And they've done tests. This is not BS, right? They know this is what's happening. But, yeah, exactly. As that blade comes down, that back part of that, it starts pushing away at that bed knife, okay? If I take a saw, a wood saw, and I take your arm and what's that gonna look like? Not good, right? It's gonna be all jaggy. It's gonna take a long time to heal, more prone to diseases and infection, right? That's what we're doing to the turf, okay? When we do the spin grind only deal, it may look good, but then you come in the afternoon and it has that brown hue to it sometimes. That's because the turf is just dried up and shriveled. The tips of the blades. So what's that now doing, right? It's not healing good. It's not healing right. More prone to diseases and infection, which means what? Now superintendent has to go out and spray for this crap. So you're gonna pay for it somewhere down the line, one way or the other. And if I take a scalpel, right, a surgical knife, and I cut your arm with it, I mean, don't want to do that, I'm just saying. But it's gonna be a nice clean cut, right? The chances of it getting infection are gonna be very little, and it's gonna heal faster. And it's gonna be a nice heal. That's what we wanna make sure we're doing. We wanna make sure we're getting that nice clean cut. That way that turf heals faster, no diseases, no infection. And then Jefe's gonna be like, wow, I don't have to spray for diseases. I don't have to spray for all this crap that I used to have to spray because you're maintaining the reel right. And then hopefully this happens. Hey, mechanic, because we're saving so much money because you're doing such a good job maintaining these reels, we're gonna give you a $20 raise. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw it out there. Somebody's getting something, right? I try. But that's, now when you cut relief, right, we lessen the amount of material coming across that reel. And if you're a backlapper, you gotta have relief, right? Because that's the purpose of that relief as well, is to hold the lapping compound in place. On this reel, the bed knife, that little valley there, that's the same purpose, right? It holds that back lapping compound in place. But now we have less material coming across that bed knife. With a slight contact, guys, I'm telling you, that freaking quality of cut will last and last and last. Like I said, I'll go 8 weeks without grinding reel mowers, okay? I'm checking them every day. I'm dressing up the face of this bed knife every other day, okay? When we grind our bed knife, you want to make sure that that front face thickness is pretty uniform all the way across, okay? And that's what maintaining your bed bar is going to help you. What does that front face do?
Holds the grass up.
Sorry? Well, the shear point, right? The cut line cuts, but the face of the bed knife pushes it up, right? Pushes up the grass. That's what that front face is for. Now, if this part here is thinner than this side, what's happening? Yeah, one side is getting hairs picked up more than the other side. So what's that gonna do for the aftercut appearance? Right, it's these little things, you'll look at it, you'll bring it in the shop. Hey, Jefe, man, I'm cutting paper, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But that face on that knife, that thickness of that face is what's gonna help cut the grass. It stands it up, right? If I'm at a golf course and we have no grinders I probably wouldn't be working there. But I'm just saying, and my jefe would say, hey Hector, we don't have money for 2 grinders, we have money for 1. Which one would you get? Bed knife? Anybody else? Why bed knife? This is what does a lot of your cutting. The reel, I mean, not to minimize the reel, right? Reel's important, we want to keep that sharp. But really, all the reel does is brings the grass in to the bed knife. You know what I'm saying? I would take a bed knife grinder all day long before a reel. Because if you can maintain this and keep this straight, dude, you can get away with a pretty jacked up reel. No, not ideal, but I'm just saying, that's how important the bed knife is in this relationship, right? Like in my house, I'm the important one in our relationship.
Sure you are.
Hey, delete that. Yeah, right? I'll be back here with my luggage. But you know what I'm saying? So the bed knife is important. So now, before I install this bed knife, I'm going to take, do we got WD-40? With the, right? I would take my little nylock bristle brush, knock off as much of that crap that I can. Thank you, senors. By the way, this is also a JRM bed knife stone, and I think it goes for like 50, 55 bucks. Okay, and that's where you can get this in. But I'll spray this down. You got a rag? Well, just pull that right out of your pocket. What else you got in there?
You don't want to know.
Sandwich.
So as you're using this, right, you want to be rotating the stone, because the last thing you want to do is wear a valley into it, or through. But if you decide to take your bed bars and get them resurfaced at a machine shop, then this becomes even more important to you. You do it with the file, that's awesome. Dude, I would.
I'm going to now.
Yeah.
I like that tool right there.
It's easy. I'll show you how much. I don't want to say it removes, but it really starts smoothing things out.
The only time I use my file is like, I put a little bit of, what's it called?
Anti-seize?
Anti-seize, yes. Anti-seize on mine. And then make the 2 surfaces together. And then when I'm done, I need to change it out. I pull it off, I clean it off. But if I see rust, like sometimes I'll see rust close to the ends.
Sure.
And then I take out my file.
So you say you put anti-seize in between the reel and bed knife?
A lot of it's
Yeah. So, you know that they actually do not recommend you doing
I
that?
know.
Yeah.
WD-40.
It's hard to get rid of.
And, yeah.
That could
I know.
be.
You gotta do what you gotta
I
do.
don't like that. I don't like rust on
You
it.
can put it on
Yeah.
your screws. Yeah. Like on your,
You see the shiny spots?
Ice rust.
Eye spots, that's right. Right?
A lot of times they're around the bolt holes.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is that?
Okay, here's my theory, right? When I did this video of the bed bar, or I did a video on this, on stoning, I had I won't tell you who it is, but I had a red bed bar. And I did that, right? And man, around the bolt holes, high, like high. And dude, I freaking had like 3 engineers from Toro called me. They're like, Hector, was that our bed knife? It was red. Obviously you thought it was because you're calling me, right? I'm like, yeah. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say it was Toro. Oh, no, we appreciate that. Who's not gonna know? You know what I'm saying? But they were concerned. I'm like, yeah. Because here's another thing I did. You also want to take your stone and do the surface of your bed knife, okay? And dude, I seriously, like, I was showing a buddy this at a golf course, and he uses all red bed knives and everything. I'm like, yeah, man, you just take it. And when I did here, I was like, whoa, what the heck? I mean, like this freaking super high spot right there. It was like a knot. And I'm like, what the heck happened here? I turned it over, I'm like, interesting. So where they stamp their name and part number, they push the divot right onto that. Yeah, so know what happens when you install that? You're gonna create a little freaking ink right there. You know what I'm saying? So I showed that in the video. I didn't flip it over to show whose name is, but that's what they were calling about, okay? And I got to talking to them and I'm like, hey, I had orange bed bars in my shop that I used this on, right? These are the 4-point adjustment, old school, Jake, how many familiar with those reels? The freaking best reels, really. I love those 4-point adjustments. I took those freaking bed bars off, you guys. I did this flat. I mean, freaking flat. This is how flat it was. I dressed it up and cleaned it up with this. I didn't grind a freaking single bed knife. 1/1000th of an inch all the way across that reel. That's gonna tweak up your bed knife, right? That's why I would encourage you, if you guys can, at least your greens mowers. Dude, it'll save you a lot of money by getting that surface. But Toro, if they were to do that, so here's what I think. I think this is what happens. They take the raw material, they fly cut it, right? They make it flat, and they turn around and drill and tap their holes. Yeah, I think that's what creates that mushroom. Yeah, yeah. It's like freaking when you solid time, right? You're doing the same thing. So I think Jacobson, what they do, they might do like a rough fly, drill and tap, and then they come back and do a finish cut to make sure that's what I think. I explained that to Tony, he's like, oh no, we don't do that. So how do you explain that? Well, it just happened. It just doesn't. I'm not an engineer. You know, by golly, come on, man. You know, yo no soy tonto. So, but they said, you know, if we go through the effort to make these flat, parallel, straight to the pivot bolts, that bed bar is going to cost you a couple $1,000. He goes, plus these bed bars, they sit in storage, they sit in warehouses, right? Cast iron, once it bends, there's no coming back. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to us. We just think, right, because it's new, we assume that it's nice, true, and flat and straight. When we're finding out that's not really the case. But now, knowing this stuff, right, now when we see things, we could know why, right? It's going to make you quicker at troubleshooting after cut appearance and things like that. Any questions on bed knives, resurface or stoning?
Where did you say you took them to get them done? At a machine shop?
I do it in my shop on my grinder.
With your SIPs?
With my SIP grinder, correct. With that grinder, I'm able to do that.
Okay.
With it.
You can't just do it with any type of trademark like that.
No. Like for example, the Foley, right? They're magnet mounts. It's going to be hard for you to mount that onto the magnet. But the reason I can get away with it is because I'm mounting to the pivot bolts. And I can, you know, I know that my grinder is 0 all the way across. The Foley, yeah, they would like that. The Bernhardts,
Maybe?
you could probably do it.
That's what I have.
Yeah. You can probably do it, right? Try it. You're gonna need dial gauges, and it's probably gonna take you a little bit of a setup, but you could probably get away with it. You know what I'm saying? So, how many of you guys use the diamond Borazon wheel for your bed knives? I wouldn't use that.
Yeah, right.
Just saying, I wouldn't use that for your bed bars. I have the pink ceramic stone that I use for that. You wanna make sure you use a cooling mist to keep that cool, because if it gets hot, yeah, you're right, the metal's gonna swell, expand, you're gonna keep grinding, and then by the time that cools off, it's not gonna be, yeah, it's not gonna be right. So that's why it takes me a long time, because I use a cooling mist, but I go very easy, little bit at a time. I don't get aggressive with it at all, you know, it's a slow process, so it takes time. But the benefits, bro, it's just, you know, like, how are we been doing this? It's like, sometimes I kick myself in the butt, because I'm like, man, all this time and now I'm learning about this. You know what I'm saying? So, machine shops, they'll do that for you. You just want to make sure you tell them that they need to be measuring off the pivot bolts. You know what I'm saying? And they get it. A lot of machinists, they understand this kind of stuff. And when you tell them you want it within a thousandth of an inch, they're going to be like, that's it. You know, because them guys are dealing in a completely freaking different scale. So we got the bed bar, right? We stoned it. We're going to install. Let's just finish it off. We're going to install a new bed knife. Guys, where's he at? Oh, so how many of you guys use new knives or new screws when you install a knife? Yes. Sometimes? You should do it every time. Because here's what happens. When you torque these screws, the metal they're made out of, right? There's torque, right? Every bolt has a torque value. What you're doing when you're bolting anything or fastening anything to torque, you're stretching the metal. Okay, you're literally stretching that bolt. That's what holds. Okay, now you can over torque, right? And then plasticity, I think is what they call it. Is that right? Yeah. When you take it past that, you've already stretched that bolt out, and there's no elasticity to it, like spring type action. Okay, that's what torque value is. So when we do that with a bed bar, right, you always want to use new screws. Okay, it's just use new screws. Okay. So I know Toro recommends, I think, what, 13 inch-pounds? Yeah, I did a video one time, and I said 13 foot-pounds. Yeah, man, that's when I learned hate mail. That's when I learned what hate mail was. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? You know what I'm just saying, you know, you're always saying foot-pounds. And now, when you install a new reel-to-bed knife, some guys use anti-seize. The manufacturers recommend a light coating of WD-40. You know what I'm saying? And that's all I do. You can if you use anti-seize on your threads, make sure you're putting it just on the thread portion and not on the taper of the screw. I've never used anti-seize on threads. If you do, remember that's going to change your torque value as well. Okay, it's going to increase it a little bit. Now I'm about to show you how right? You have your tools, right? And you get to know your tools. You know how your tools work. You know how they tighten, right? If you've been doing this for a really long time, you know what 20 foot-pounds feels like, right? You just know the feeling, okay? Notice how easy this is, right? I'm not wrestling with this thing on a bench.
Where can we get that stamp?
So this one is actually available. I don't wanna take it back home. Just throwing it out there. But they retail for $7.95. And, with shipping taxes, it's like $1,040. And it comes with, and that's with casters. If you don't want, a lot of guys don't get it with the casters. Personally, I like the casters. You can kind of move it around a little bit.
I like it too. Pretty deep. Yeah.
So all I use is,
Come on, bro. I got a company now. Dude, we buy shit.
but that's because I know my tool, right? This is not mine, but I have one like this that I use for this. And at that, all I do, Toro, John Deere, Jacobson, they all have their tightening sequence, right? And those are good. I like Toros. I found when I do it Toro's way on Jacobson or John Deere's or Toros, that you can tell the difference of the grinder, okay, when you grind. Because if you over tighten these, you're gonna warp that a little bit, okay? So with this, all I do, and I use the JRM bit, I start in the middle. And this is all. That's it. Just a couple of quick. And then I do the ends. And then I go back to the middle and I go back and forth, okay? How many of you guys are using the punch and hammer? You don't have to. Yeah, dude, this is all. I've been doing it like this, guys, for probably, well, my second year. I used to be the 5-pound sledgehammer, right? You beat that sucker down until you have to freaking screw it out of there. That baby ain't coming out, you know? And then you walk out of it like this, you know what I'm saying? Freaking arm all sore from the 5 pounds. Yeah, dude, we've all done it, you know what I'm saying? We've all been there, done that. It's.
You ever recommend retapping?
Huh?
You ever put like medium strength Loctite on it?
No.
You ever had that?
Nope.
Back out then?
I've been doing it this way for 24 years, and I've never, ever, ever, ever had a screw fall out. Never had a screw fall out. And then when it comes time to change it, it's just that easy. What I like about these, right, they fit the slot so good that if I over tighten it, it sticks to it. So then I know it's like, ooh, too tight, right? So I'll take it out and I'll put another new screw on there. But
You ever retap your head bar screw holes?
I'm sorry,
You ever retap your head bar screw holes?
have I ever had a retap? No. I had one customer's reels, Jacobson. I swear he picked these up from the bottom of the ocean. And I had to do it then because they were just so bad. I had to clean up the threads. But for you guys, right, you see your own reels day in, day out. I mean, if it's, I wouldn't, I mean, if you have to, you have to, right? But it's not a normal practice for me. I've never had to. Because when I spray it down with WD-40, it gets lubricated, right? You know. I know some guys they'll use silicone in between. You definitely don't want to be doing that. I mean, you're hurting yourself.
Mark, you're still coming
RTV like caulking, yeah, because they don't want moisture, crap getting in between there. That's what, yeah, I know. It's gonna get in there. Yeah, it's gonna get in there, right? Moisture, crap, I mean, it's outside, you're mowing grass. It's gonna get in there, but that's okay, right? We clean it up, and we do our stoning, and we move on with life. Some things are just, it is what it is. And sometimes we want to prevent that, but then we're creating, another issue that we don't really need, right? I mean, I'll deal with a little surface rust. To me, that's just telling me that's good metal, right? But that's all I'll do to my bed bar, okay? Now it's done, I'll throw that bad boy on the grinder. All right, now when it comes to the reel, here's one thing we need to understand when it comes to reels, right? Sometimes you'll see guys, they freaking have dial gauges all over this thing, and it looks really, and I'm not saying this, I'm just saying, we've gotten to the point where we're trying to measure so tight and so ridiculous that we're forgetting these freaking bearings have tolerances. You know what I mean? They have to have tolerances. You got 2 bearings here, 2 bearings here, 2 bearings back here, and we're freaking getting to the point where we're measuring past that. And we know dang well, right? We spend all this time freaking fine tuning and doing all this thing. As soon as that mower gets out there and it drops on that turf, guess what? All that just went out the freaking window. You know what I'm saying? That's why, for me, simple, right? Spend the time on things that are worth it and value, right? Like resurfacing that bed barn. You're gonna see benefits from that, right? I mean, you're gonna be saving money on that freaking bed knife because you're chewing up the bottom surface. That's worth spending time on, that's worth getting right. But when we're sitting here and freaking like doing all these contraptions to parallel, right? We all have that operator, he'll go out, mow fairways, that disgruntled tree will jump out from the forest, jump in the middle of the fairway, knock a reel out of whack, you know? We gotta freaking, you know what I'm saying? Keep it simple, right? And then focus on things that are really gonna help you and that affects where you get results and able to fix things. The first thing I do before I put my reel on the grinder, right? I wanna see the condition of this reel. I wanna know what shape this reel is in. So this is where the pie tape, the reel diameter tape comes in. All right, machinists, right? They have pie tapes. Same thing. This is what we're doing with this. This is gonna tell me what shape this reel is in. Our scale on this reel tape doesn't start till here. There's a 0, this is what they call the vernier scale, okay? And what's gonna happen then, I'm gonna put the magnet inside the reel. It doesn't matter where. This is not like your typical measuring tape where you're gonna measure from here to here, right? We're measuring a diameter, and that doesn't start, our reference point is not till here anyways. So we got all of this that's not gonna matter anyways, okay? So I'm gonna stick that in the reel. I'm gonna make sure that that magnet is in the reel blade and it's not going to interfere by me. I'm gonna wrap it, this reel tape is gonna come around. You wanna make sure that when you come around, that tape is lining up with that vernier scale, okay? Everything above that 0 is what you're going to count, okay? So you got the big numbers, 1 inch, 2, 3, 4 inch, 5 inch, etc. And then each line represents 0.025 thousandths of an inch, right? 25 thousandths of an inch. So each line represents 25 thousandths of an inch. And then we have the other scale, the 1, 2. So it'll be like, let's just say we know a brand new reel is 5 inches, right? Brand new reel, 5 inches out of the box. Most of them say that 5-inch reel at 4.5 inches, you've reached its useful life, okay? I say at 4.5 inches, that reel becomes my T-mower reel, right? Or my collar reel, where it doesn't matter, because your height of cut is high enough, okay? So you can kind of rotate it that way. So I always do this. I measure my reel before, and then I measure after, okay? after doing this and you're keeping data and log on your cutting units, here's where it's going to matter, right? You're gonna start seeing a trend. How much reel you're using in a season, right? Once you get that trend or that data built up, guess what you're gonna be able to do? Ooh, if this trend keeps up, this reel will be good for 3 years or 3 seasons, right? Or 4 seasons. As long as the superintendent doesn't turn into Mr. Sandman, right? We should be good. So now you're able to predict and budget. You're gonna know, hey, in 2 years, we're gonna be needing reels for our ferry mower. So right now we can budget, right? We got a couple extra $100 here. You know, we can get a screw for the bed knife for this month. You know what I'm saying though? That way you're not surprised, holy crap, Jefe, we need 10 reels for our ferry mowers. Well, what do you mean we need 10 reels? Yeah, I can't adjust them anymore. So now you're gonna be able to predict that. Here's another reason why the pie tape and measuring your reel diameter is important. It becomes really important when you have a 5-plex, triplex, greens mower. The angle of attack, right? And what I mean by that is, how is that bed knife sitting on the turf? I was at a golf course where their ferry cut was like, man, it's not good, I don't get it, I'm cutting paper. So we bring a reel up and we put it up here. First thing I noticed, this whole back hand is completely nice and shiny, right? So I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, dude, you don't even have an angle of attack, right? I mean, his bed knife is basically sitting on the turf like this, okay? We adjusted that. Made his reel a little bit more aggressive, okay, by raising up the reel roller a little bit, giving him some angle attack, cleaned up his fairways like nobody's business, okay? That angle attack also changes depending on your reel diameter, okay? If you got a big reel, you're gonna be like this, right? So the rake of that reel is gonna be hitting the canopy before it comes into the shear point, okay? There's a sweet spot for that, and that depends if you have soft greens, if you have hard greens, if you have thatch on your green. Nobody has thatch on their greens, right? But all that, right, you can change the after-cut appearance. You might have to play with that. On that golf course where I had to change the freaking rollers, I had to change that. Because, dude, in the summertime, they would get freaking rock hard, and so I have to get a little bit less aggressive because we don't want that reel, and then depending on the height of cut as well. If you're cutting really low, the last thing you want is that reel to be rubbing on your turf, okay? So that's one thing to look at. But now here's why this matters when it comes to all that. If I have a triplex greens mower, and let's say I have one reel that's measuring at 4/900, right? 4 inches, 0.900 thousandths of an inch. And then maybe this reel over here is measuring at 4.5 inches, right? I have one reel that's more aggressive than this reel. So now you're gonna go out there, it's cutting, it's mowing, but now you have 3 different paths that you see when it should be just like one pass, right? The smaller the reel is, the higher you have to push that front edge up. That's gonna start pushing your cut line further from the center distance of that reel when you wanna have a little bit of rake into that, okay? So this reel will be like this, while the reel with the small diameter, you're sitting up here like this, right? And you do your height of cut, but it's that aggression that's going to change your after cut appearance, right? The quality of the cut that you're getting afterwards. So when you're measuring your reels, you want to try to keep all those reels within the same neighborhood, right? That way they're all set up the same, they all have the same angle, and then you're gonna mow, and it's gonna look like one big reel just went across your green, okay? And it's gonna give you a whole lot cleaner, a lot nicer after cut appearance. Jefe's gonna be really happy about that, you know what I'm saying? So that's that's why that matters. So if you have a triplex and you have 3 completely different size reels and you're not able to switch them out, right, to kind of get them grouped up into the same size, what you'll have to do is find the smallest reel, and guess what? You're gonna have to grind the other ones down to its size. You know what I'm saying? But then now we know, right? We're gonna keep track of that and make sure that when you're grinding, you're paying attention to the diameter, and you wanna make sure that however much you take off one reel, you're doing the same thing to the next reel and the next reel. You wanna keep it consistent throughout and keep them close, and dude, your after cut appearance is gonna look nice. So just out of curiosity, we're gonna measure this reel. Yeah. This is more accurate than the real caliper. Want to make sure you're pulling this tape. Should I turn around? I don't want to have my back. I'm sorry. Right, it's wrapped around. I got it nice and tight. Now, the way this works then is it's measuring at 4 inches, 0.8, and the line where the 0 is, you got this line and then the vernier scale, then the next one is the 2 lines that best match each other first. You're gonna have a set of line that's gonna like completely match up. That's gonna be your next number. I have a video on this. So if you go to my library, you can see more details, you know, how that works. So this reel is measuring at 4 inches, 0.775.
What was yours? 4.7? I don't remember. When do you flip those things over?
And this side is
When
measuring
do you
at
flip them at?
4.825.
The little things on the side? At 480 you flip them, right?
So 775,
It's like,
825, the difference of
I read that the other day.
50? I'm not a mathematician, so thank you.
460 or 480?
So now,
60, I think,
we have a difference of 50 thousandths of an inch of cone on this reel. That's a lot, okay? But now we know, right? Now we know the difference. You can take those numbers. Does that have the dial? That has the dial? So you can make up the difference of that on the grinder to get that grind out, to get that cone out. Most guys with express duals, they just do touch, right? And they don't address that cone. So if we don't address this cone, right, our whole cutting unit is gonna be lopsided, okay? If the next reel is off by 15 thousandths of an inch and we don't address that cone, that's gonna be lopsided. So I mean, we're gonna have reels all over the place, right? And it's not gonna, we're never gonna get a consistent quality. Is that making sense, you guys? Right? It's important. It really is. And this tool will, I mean, this is a tool. It's going to help you, right, to find these issues. I mean, you look at that reel, man, that looks good, right? Nothing wrong with that. But we're finding I mean, that's a lot. 50 thousandths, right? That's a lot. When I do my reels, I'd like to get them down to at least 5 thousandths of an inch and below, or below. I like to see 0, but man, nobody can do. We'll be there forever, right? And I don't want to do that. So you have to find whatever's acceptable for you. For some guys, hey, I'm good if they're at 10 thousandths, right? That's their, but it works for them, right? They get good quality of cut. They don't have any issues. But we want to improve, right? We always want to be improving, making things better, and it's going to help you out in the long run with after cut appearance and troubleshooting. So when we grind this reel, we want to make sure we address that. I can guarantee you, if we put this on a granite block, we're probably going to see a little rocking here. Okay, so, and that's what is that doing in the turf, right? It's the same thing. You know, I mean, I know the earth is, the green is not completely flat, right? But you're still going to see it's going to affect the quality of cut. You're going to have a little step cut, maybe from one reel to the next reel. Okay. We should probably eat before we start grinding. I think, what time is that? 11:40. Anybody getting hungry? So we'll take a break and then we'll get to grinding. Any questions? After mentioning food, nobody.